I thought I knew this weapon, the Fire Knight Greatsword. Fire infusion should be the best, right? But it lied to me, and I had to know why. So I went deep testing every infusion, every Ash of War, every buff, until I uncovered a build that hits 600% harder. And the truth, it changes everything. This is how I cracked the code for the Fire Knight Greatsword. First, we need to analyze the weapon itself. What is it good at? Let's talk moveset. The light attacks are like the Godslayer's Greatsword, known for being faster. The charge heavy is a thrust, like the Zweihander's. The default skill is stamp upward cut. And looking at the damage number of each tells us something very important. Heavy is easily the standout, and it can be charged for even more. The default skill is just okay, but this weapon can definitely do better. That leads us to the first important decision. What is the best Ash of War to pair with the weapon? Since the weapon has innate fire damage, let's test Ash of Wars within this affinity. Looking at the results, right away we have a major discovery. The exclusive Flame Art Ash of Wars ranked the lowest among the rest. They all have low DPS values. The other Ash of Wars that can be used with different affinities led the pack in terms of DPS. And the winner, Royal Knight's Resolve, with a DPS of 15.4. Now that we have the Ash of War locked in, we need to determine the best infusion to use with the Fire Knight Greatsword. To get an idea on what performs best, I set all stats to 60 and tested every affinity against the same boss. And here's what I found. Sacred and Magic hold up better than expected. Flame Art is surprisingly close. Quality comes out on top, and Blood's low damage hides its real advantage, bleed buildup, which doesn't show up in raw damage testing. So let's start connecting the dots. 3 contenders rise to the top. Blood, passive bleed potential and insane synergies. Flame Art, close second and thematically tempting. Quality, raw damage king. Everything else falls short or suffers from weird split scaling. First things first, let's settle Flame Art against quality. What if we make the stat investment fair? Here's the setup. Quality uses 44 strength, 44 dexterity, and 12 faith. That is 48 levels total. Flame Art uses 22 strength, 18 dex, and 60 faith. Also 48 levels total. So now we are comparing apples to apples. Same level investment, same weapon, just different scaling focus. Then I ran tests against a variety of bosses, from the most vulnerable to fire to the most resistant. And these are the results. When bosses are weak to fire, Flame Art wins by a lot. But as soon as there is even moderate fire resistance, quality pulls ahead. But let's also be fair and look at their ideal scaling. What happens when both builds go all in? Quality with 60 strength and 60 dexterity. Flame Art, same as before, 60 faith. The results are still consistent. Against weak enemies, Flame Art still wins. Against neutral enemies, quality starts to catch up, and against fire-resistant enemies, quality dominates. And now, here is the kicker. Look at the fire resistance on the DLC bosses. Only 2 bosses, Erdtree Avatar and Yuri, are weak to fire, which we did the tests on. The tests made Flame Art look better than it actually is, since it doesn't factor in the rest of the bosses. The majority are neutral or resistant to fire. And the toughest fights, Rellana, Meteor, Bale, Midra, Mesmer, and Consort Radon, they are all heavily resistant to fire. So ask yourself this. Would you rather build for the 2 easiest fights or dominate the hardest ones and not worry about the rest? It is technically cheaper to build into fire, but it is less effective. The moment any boss has the slightest fire resistance, it falls off immediately. I would rather run quality and never worry about the boss resistances. It is consistent, it scales better long term, and when it comes to high-end fights, quality wins easy. Now it's time to put it to the test against the final boss, a blood infusion. Blood versus quality for the best infusion for the Fire Knight Greatsword. To settle this in a fair way, we need to use a time to kill test. And to be extremely fair to both styles, we will use the same boss, same resistances, same pace, but different buffs that only work with their respective style. The results? It is nearly a tie. The TTK is nearly identical, but there is a catch. Bleed is inconsistent. It will perform better against some bosses, but will fall way behind against others. Once you proc it, bosses will resist it, and you lose power the longer the fight goes on. Quality though, it's always strong. No gimmicks. In my opinion, quality wins overall for this weapon. The perfect path into building this weapon involves the use of Royal Knight Resolve with the quality affinity. Now, this is the part where it gets really fun. Time to juice the numbers and see how far we can push the damage for this weapon. Starting at the top, we have the Royal Knight Resolve buff, which gives you a staggering 80% damage increase, by far the highest in this setup. Counter attack. This is a passive trigger that boosts your damage by 30% when you strike with a thrust weapon mid-enemy attack. The Spear Talisman also works and adds another 15% boost to this passive. Don't forget Golden Vow, which gives a 15% damage increase. Flame Grant Me Strength adds the full 20% boost to this setup. The Two-Handed Talisman adds another 15%. The Axe Talisman gives an easy 10% more damage on the Charged Heavy, and the Spiked Crack tier adds another 15%. If you're running the Rakshasa set, you also get another 8% as well. And another very fitting talisman for this weapon is the Ritual Sword Talisman. That's another 20% while at full health, perfect for an early burst. You might not proc this talisman at all times, but that is okay. As long as it helps in that initial burst of damage, it is worth it in my opinion. 20% that will scale multiplicatively with the other buffs is really worth it. All the buffs combined, our total damage increase is around 600%. Let that sink in. It can easily be pushed further with Howl of Shibari and the Bloodsucking tier, and we would start hovering around one-shot build territory with a 775% increase. Let's put it all together. The real build behind the Fire Knight's Greatsword. The weapon, Fire Knight's Greatsword, maxed to plus 25. Use the Royal Knight's Resolve Ash of War and apply the quality infusion. In your offhand, use a seal. Any seal, don't upgrade it, just use it to cast the buffs. For the armor, the Rakshasa set for its damage boost, or the Fire Knight set for its thematic fashion. For the talismans, the Two-Hand Talisman, the Axe Talisman, the Spear Talisman, and the Ritual Sword Talisman. If you don't like the last option, use Blade of Mercy instead for its 20% boost after a critical. For our physic, pair the Spiked Crack tier with the Stone Barb Crack tier. For the buffs, Golden Vow for that 15% increase, and Flame Grant Me Strength for that 13%. And finally, our stats. 50 Vigor, enough HP, 10 Mind, enough FP, 28 Endurance for the medium roll, and between 40 to 60 Strength for optimized quality scaling, between 40 to 60 Dexterity for optimized quality scaling as well. Just keep both 1-to-1 as you level up, and 25 Faith to cast our buffs. A weapon that looks like it's built for fire, but hits hardest with raw, unfiltered physical might. The Fire Knight's Greatsword lied, but now you know the truth. If you found this breakdown helpful, drop a like to support, and let me know in the comments what weapon you want to see next. Meanwhile, if you want to see my last video on the chicken wing, a build that deals over 400% damage, click right here.
Bye.